Welcome, friends, to Kardec Radio and the Spirit Society of Virginia in our Life into World City series every Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. We're welcoming you to this new year with Andre Luiz. Andre Luiz, the Spirit Doctor, who wrote through Chico Xavier, the Brazilian medium, and certainly the medium of all times. Of all times. He comes to us, Andre Luiz, to tell us about life on earth from two perspectives. It's the perspective of the spiritual realm, the real one. And today we're going to select a book, mainly The Messengers. This book came just after the book In Life, Nosso Lar, Our Home. And the book, The Messengers, tells us about our plan before we reincarnate and how sometimes, or often, we miss the boat. We get out of track. We do not fulfill our very milestones for the soul in that reincarnation. What can we do to overcome it all? So today, we're going to begin at home, where we can certainly calibrate ourselves day in, day out, every day, to fulfill our curriculum in this reincarnation. But before we begin, we're going to ask our dear friend John De Rosa to join us and read a message, preparing our minds, our vibrations for this most therapeutic and instructional moment together. Right, John?
Right. Good day, my Kardec Radio friends. This message comes from Andre Luiz from a book called Spiritus Conduct. The chapter 5, it's entitled In the Home. And there is a New Testament quote from Paul, first letter to Timothy, chapter 5, verse 4, which states, "Let them learn first to show compassion towards their own family and repay their parents, because that is good and pleasant before God." And then Andre writes, through Chico, of course, "Begin to exemplify your espoused principles with sincerity and firmness in the intimacy of the domestic temple, making your own conduct uniform in and outside of the home. Spiritist faith in the family sphere is the source of spiritism in the social environment. Silence every raging and violent impulse by having the gospel guide you to establish harmony within yourself before others. Humility constructs for the eternal life. Provide children with the fundamentals of a solid and well-oriented education without installing in them fear or fantasies. Start by giving them simple and common names. Avoid the pageantry of famous names that are susceptible to creating future embarrassments for them. Home is the first school. Whenever possible, convert the family sanctuary into a facility to aid the less fortunate while utilizing the resources that are less necessary to domestic maintenance. There are no bounds to the harvest of Christ. If you are alone in your faith within the recesses of your home, the Spiritist should attend faithfully to the testimony of love that he or she is responsible for, remembering that each person will answer at any time for his or her espoused principles. The human limelight always places us in the role that we should perform. At least once a week, gather with those who share your faith for a God at home studying the truth and radiating the good through prayers and discussions around daily experiences under the light of the Spiritist postulates. Those who cultivate the gospel at home make their own home a temple of Christ. And there's one more. Avoid superfluous luxuries within your living quarters. Display simplicity in objects and clothing. Display simplicity from your smallest habits to the smallest architectural details of your home. There is no true Christian Spiritist environment without simplicity within us. Thank you, my friends.
Thank you, John, for reading this message, and a message that really sets the tone for our therapeutic session today. Let us together say a prayer, because when we pray, we connect even deeper with one another, the good spirits, the messengers of the beyond, and use this time to be treated for us, family members, and even those who persecute us. May they also receive the blessings that we are receiving, being showered at this moment. Dear Lord of life, it is wonderful to know that you are with us everywhere and with everyone. To know that there is no place on earth where you are not. To know that we are safe, for we are deeply connected with you, immersed in your abundant love, in your universe. We feel like babies, cared for in details that we don't even perceive. But sometimes, in our childish mind, in our ignorance, we feel abandoned and alone. And we feel that we lack what we need. Forgive us, dear Father, Mother God, for our ingratitude. Forgive our ignorance. May this session deepen our awareness of your indisputable providence. May everyone who is here in this circle of study and therapy perceive the soothing and strengthening presence of yours, directly or indirectly, through the guardian angels of each one of us, the protecting spirits who are committed to our growth. May we feel how blessed we are and count our blessings beginning where we are at this moment. We pray for those who have their names in the book of prayer at the Spiritist Society of Virginia and Cardiac Radio. We pray that everyone receives the loving visit of your spirit doctors, nurses, and therapists, renewing their thoughts and feelings in optimism, hope, and courage to fulfill the educational curriculum of this life with much gratitude to express and a lot of praiseworthy feelings for you. We accept the invitation to be in this moment together with one another and you. Thank you, God, and so be it. All right, friends, right now we're gonna begin. We're together, Daisy and I, and Paloma, Luciana, Carol, and John will be with you now in a session about making our home a temple. So, saying hi to everybody who is here. We're seeing you, friends. We'd like to invite you to this reflection. In the next slide, we're going to see a question for us, right? As we move into this statement that we need to fill out. Home is a place for, what is home for you? Let us meditate. When you think of your home, what is it for you? Is it a hideout? Is it a place where you can do all the things you cannot do anywhere else? Is it a place where we can just rest and rest and rest and rest? Or is it an office? Because nowadays many of us have transformed our homes into office. What is this home for us? Home for us is, it's important that we evaluate and begin our moment, educational, therapeutic moment, asking this question, what is home for you? Is it a place for doing the good to others? Reaching out? Is it a place of love, for love? Is it a place of study? Is it a temple? What is it? Anna from Brazil, Anna Martins is saying first school. Thank you, Anna. She's saying, if you are there, friends, feel free to type it in. We can see here our dear friends, Anna, Rihanna, Narciso, Serena, Paula, Tatiane, Nora, Erica, Amber, Yvonne from Sweden. Thank you so much, Yvonne. So, friends, what is home for you? It's so important because awareness is everything. What is a home for us? If we propose that our homes become a temple, what is a temple? Okay, so let's go briefly into the next slide where we are going to ask ourselves, what is a temple then? Is it simply a building? When we see the definition, we're going to see that a temple is a building reserved for spiritual activities. It could be more than that, but people could claim, but Vanessa, we're on earth, but who are you? A spirit. So our homes should be a temple for spiritual activities because we are spirits. But aren't we on earth? Yes, but we're spirits living on earth. How can we transform our homes into this very temple? Does this long, lazy rest pertain to spiritual activities? The eating. We eat at home. So many people say they eat at home what they don't eat anywhere else because nobody sees it. It's a temple of indulgence for many people, where they eat, where they rest, where they indulge in their sensations. What is it for us? Can we really transform our homes into this space reserved for spiritual activities? And what would they be? These are some of the questions. To help guide us and feel the focus of it all, we're going to ask in the next slide Andre Luiz in the book Spirit is Conduct. This book is already translated since 2016. It's already in the hands of the Brazilian Spiritist Federation. It's up to them when they're going to publish. But every Spiritist magazine, we have an article of this book being published in the very, very beginning of the magazine. So if you want to read more of the messages from the Spirit Andre Luiz, you can go to the Spiritist magazine. We have the app, we have the website, spiritistmagazine.org, and you can buy the magazine, deliver to your house. There's no subscription. You can buy each issue. You can read it for free in our app. You can read it for free in the website, in your tablet, any digital form, and you can even print out the PDF. We have several programs at Kardec Radio that talk about the Spiritist magazine, from the program by Shane Martin every Tuesday about it, to Greg Palma every 2 weeks on Monday. And we also have our dear Nora, who often has used many of these articles as well to read, and other friends who have used articles to share with you. So in this book, as John DeRosa read, we have a message, as you're going to begin seeing right now. In the first slide, when Andre Luiz talks about coherence at home, how do we transform our home into a temple for the Spirit? First, we need coherence. He says, exemplify your principles with sincerity and firmness in the intimacy of your home, the domestic temple, making your own conduct uniform in and outside of the home. Before we read the next sentence that completes the thought, let's talk about this. How often we embrace these teachings, this way of living, for example, the Spiritist way of living, and then we go home and we don't walk the talk. So coherence is everything. And it's okay if we fall, but we need to stand up and begin anew. Because he says the Spiritist faith in the family sphere is the source of Spiritism in the social environment. That's where we begin it all. Here is where we set the tone for our life elsewhere, everywhere else. So this is where, as if we are in a spiritual temple. But Vanessa, sometimes it's so hard. I just want to be myself. There is a controversial point here when people say that I want to be myself. The question is, who are you? Because you think you are an animal, like wild, like I want to go wild. I want to be at home who I am. But who are you? You're a child of God, and you barely know of it. You are divine, and that's part of you too. So being patient and prudent and loving and caring and kind is part of your nature, but we don't practice it. So the Spiritist understanding reaffirms to us that's who you are. Just be it, but begin at home. So we need that coherence, that willingness to be in this mode of kindness, understanding, caring, forgiving. Forgiveness is so vital at home. No home survives without forgiveness. It's the ultimate call within our homes. We need to forgive ourselves, forgive others, and understand, as Jesus said to Peter once, most often, Peter, we're more fragile. People are more fragile than evil. And it's so true. We speak nonsense. Sometimes we have those days in which we do things that later we without we were the ones doing it. We blame on the obsessors, but actually, when we read Andre Luiz books, we know it's not the obsessors. It is us and them together. It's like a teamwork effort. And the beauty of it all is that when we start being coherent, the spiritual network that is with us follows along. The next slide will bring to us Andre Luiz' recommendation for this practice of inner peace. He's going to say to us the following: silence every raging and violent impulse by having the gospel guide you to establish harmony within yourself before others. And he completes: humility constructs for the eternal life. Okay, in a book that is yet to be translated, this book, Alvorada Cristã, I don't even have the title in English. The spirit that wrote this through Chico Xavier is named Neia Lúcio. Neia Lúcius, who is in the book 50 years ago by Emmanuel through Chico Xavier, he came in the spiritual realm and wrote this book. It's mostly for kids, but it's for us too. And he talks in a very chapter about this. He says about the cry of wrath. And he says that a child who was somewhat entitled and spoiled was screaming out loud and giving a tantrum. And then the mother was afflicted. She ran inside, and then she started having some headache, and her heart started beating too fast. And then the two daughters came to help her out and were taking care of the meal that she was fixing. And 2/3 of the meal for lunch were spoiled. And because the man who had to eat, the provider before going back to work, couldn't eat at the right time, he was late for work. He went to work later and late. And the boss was really upset with him. Thank God he had some emotional management skills, and he contained. He was humiliated, and because of one tantrum of a child, a cascade of events happened that Neia Lúcio says. The mom got worse in her health. She had some high blood pressure. The father had some impediments at work. They had some extra bills. One tantrum cost them 6 months of worries at home. And then later, those 6 months of arduous work, sacrifice, and tears really were turned around. Is this dramatic? No, it's the story of many families every day. If our children just knew the impact of their own decisions into the family's health, physical, financial, and it begins with the parents. We need to set the standard. No cursing, no wild cries and screams, practicing positive silence. Why we're saying positive? Because some people, they keep silent in the mouth, but their heart is full of rage. We're talking about the inner practice of this inner peace, saying, I forgive, I forget, prayer, being humble. It's so important to practice humility. Why does he say humility? Because when we are enraged, if we go to the Gospel according to Spiritism, we're going to see that rage is a byproduct of our pride when we think we're more than we are. That's why humility. Who are we? Our guided model was never like this. So why should we? So it's a constant reminder for us of the practice of this constructive silence. that will attract the good spirits. Later, our dear Daisy is going to tell us more about this connection with the good spirits. In the next slide, we're going to see that Andre Luiz continues proposing to us this solid foundation of a spiritual temple at home by educating our children in the right direction. It's not about sending them off to school, but providing them with the fundamentals of a solid and well oriented education without fears, fantasies, and start giving them simple names. And he's saying home is the first school, as our dear Anna Martins was just mentioning to us. And Erica is saying, studying the gospel to help us increase the love, harmony, and peace within our family. You're so right. So when we're talking about education, we're talking about the full spectrum of it. Educating us as spirits living on earth. So politeness is part of it. Etiquette is part of it. We don't need to go to the extremes of that fancy etiquette, but it's good to learn how to eat, how to talk, how to be prudent in our ways of expressing ourselves, how important it is for us to be considerate and kind, but especially spiritual education. Reminding our children often, instead of saying, what you're doing is hurting me. No, it's not about you, parents. It's about them and God, as Mother Teresa said. Don't say that to your children. Bring God to the plate. That's what matters the most. Or they will be power struggling forever, saying, what you're doing to yourself. The other day I was talking to a 16-year-old, and she was saying, I'm so mad at my mom because my mom is this way, my father's that way. I said, I understand. It's understandable. Parents do things we don't agree. Sometimes it's unnerving. But remember, if you stop, if you allow yourself to go through this anger and start acting out, at the end of the day, it's your life. Your parents are set, but you're just building your life, building it up. If you think you're affecting them, look in the mirror. You're affecting your life. So it's up to you. Deal with your anger in a different way. Don't act out, because by acting out, you're building a cascade of events that will come back to you later. And that's how we should talk to our children, reminding them, as my father used to say very wisely, whatever you do, Vanessa, remember, you will deal with the consequences. And that helped me all the way through to the current times. It's not about them, the parents, us. It's about us and God. In the next slide, Andre Luiz is going to deepen that proposal of making our home a temple by saying that charity begins at home. That's such an interesting concept that sometimes we rarely use to make our homes a temple. He says, whenever possible, convert the family sanctuary into a facility to aid the less fortunate, while using the resources that are less necessary to the domestic maintenance. There are no bounds to the harvest of Christ. But what do we do when we are home? In the next slide, we're going to see a chapter, a piece of chapter 4, part 2 of the book, Paul and Stephen. When Paul talks about the dangers of doing exactly the opposite of what Andre Luiz proposed. Transforming our homes into a workplace to reach out to others when we rest. And we give excuses, right? I want to rest. I'm so tired. I'm working so much. I'm so tired. I'm working so much. Log how much you're working to see if that's so true. because he's saying we need to be very careful about caution, about resting. He's talking to the young John Mark, this is Paul of Tarsus. In the book Paul and Stephen, he's talking with John Mark, who is a teenager, and he's tired of everything. He wants to go back home. So Paul of Tarsus says to him, always remember that David remained faithful to the Almighty as long as he stayed busy. But when he rested, he yielded to adultery. And you may say, oh no, but my husband doesn't. My wife doesn't. I don't. Well, it depends. What is adultery to you? If you're watching porn, welcome to adultery. That's what it is. In Spiritism, we consider it adultery. If you are just flirting, that's in the game as well of adultery. And that's a sign that we are not using our time to work. Solomon remained pure in faith during the heavy work of building the temple. But when he rested, he too was overcome by debauchery. Judas started out well and was a direct disciple of the Lord, but the Master's triumphant entry in Jerusalem was all it took for him to surrender to betrayal and death. In this case of Judas, Paul of Tarsus is reminding us when we have happy, glorious days. It's when we come home and say, I got a promotion, I have more money. And that's when we start failing again, going to the inertia of our lives. With so many examples, it will be useful that we never rest. We highlight it because Paul of Tarsus is not kidding. In every single book in the Spiritist literature, every single one, we'll find the recommendations of thousands of illuminated spirits saying, do not rest much. Snow's gonna come some parts of the world. Summer's coming in other parts of the world. And it's a call for us to rest and relax all day long. Be careful. Be careful, because that's when we may make a decision and change our lives for centuries. Let's be careful. Transforming our homes into a workplace to help and reach out to others is an antidote and a way to vaccinate ourselves against the mental bacteria of laziness that may cause a lot of harm to us in the long run of immortality. In the next slide, we're going to see Andre Luiz inviting us to deepening our faith, our conviction amongst those who do not embrace it yet. He says, if you are alone in your faith, within the recesses of your home, the Spiritist should attend faithfully to the testimony of love that he or she is responsible for. Remember that each person will answer at any time for his or her espoused principles. The human limelight always places us in the role that we should perform. We should not preach to those who don't want. We should not expect them to do what we do, but we have to do what we need to do. And as I said to Virginia once, because during this pandemic, we were so much at home, doing everything at home, though we were all together all the time, often she found me here at Cardiac Radio and talking to people over the phone, over Zoom. And she was like, Mom, but again, Mom, another time. And I said, Virginia, never complain about seeing Mom reaching out to people. Complain when you see Mom resting too much and she doesn't need it. Because when you complain about Mom sharing the light, you are not in the light. You want to be in the light. So join in. And that's how often she joined me in many recordings throughout the pandemic. So, the same, we need to talk to our spouses and to our children, to our parents, to whomever is in our lives. Why don't you join me? So important. Even if you're seated by my side, I feel so much better because I feel your vibrations, your support. I feel you. We are doing this together. It's an invitation. Don't fight, don't argue, but just be strong in your conviction. And one more slide. Andre Luiz reminds us about keeping our homes simple, avoiding luxuries, displaying simplicity in objects and clothing, and displaying simplicity in smallest habits, in the smallest architectural details of your home. There's no true Christian spiritist environment without simplicity within us. And what do? We have a little more money and we start fencing it up. It's tempting, right? But we cannot cultivate God within us without simplicity. Simplicity is key to humility, and simplicity doesn't mean poverty. It means simple. It means somewhat cultivating this minimalism. We could go right now, if you go anywhere, everything is on sale. It's natural. Businesses have to make a living. That doesn't mean you have to buy anything just because it's on sale. That's not simple. On the contrary, it's very complicated. So, next, we're going to see Andre Luiz bringing us the ultimate call that Erica already shared with us here. At least once a week, gather with those who share your faith for a God at home, studying the truth and radiating the good through prayers and discussions around daily experiences under the light of the spiritual principles. Those who cultivate the gospel at home make their home a temple of Christ. Precisely what Erica said here to us. To know more about this, we're going to ask our dear Daisy to join us, right, Daisy? And go on, continue, right, Daisy?
That's right, Vanessa. Good morning, friends. So, we would like to bring a beautiful case to illustrate how we can make our home a true temple. And this case is in this book, The Messengers, by Andre Luiz as well, the same author of the message that Vanessa just shared with us, psychographed by Chico Xavier. And in this book, as Vanessa mentioned at the beginning, is the continuation of the book Nosso Lar. And in this particular part of the book, we have our friend Andra Luiz with other friends, Vicente and a instructor called Aniceto, and they are traveling from the spiritual colony, Nosso Lar, that we get to know in the first book. They're traveling to Earth, right here, to Earth's crust, specifically to the city of Rio de Janeiro in the 1940s. And they are here to perform some activities to help. And Aniceto, the mentor, mentions that, as they travel from this spiritual colony to Earth's crust, it is very heavy for them here on the Earth's crust. So they need a place to stay, to recharge themselves as they go through their activities. So that is the first thing for us to reflect, that the high spirits They come to help us, but they also need to recharge themselves because it is very heavy. And Andre Luiz clearly saw this as soon as they arrived in the city of Rio de Janeiro. He described that as they walk through the streets, as we can see here on these pictures, he could clearly see the spirits with this very low vibration. He describes some of them have animalistic characteristics and features. And they were just wandering, following people in their homes, in their cars. So, that is actually a very important point for us before we go to talk about this temple that they came to visit and to stay. When we are out on the streets, when we get into our car, we have a spiritual company. In our homes, we have spiritual company. We know we are spirits, and we get to know the spiritist literature that actually two-thirds of the spirits on earth are actually discarnated. So we have more discarnate spirits than incarnate spirits. So the question for all of us today is how can we protect our home? And Andre Luiz was puzzled because he saw this happening on the street. But then when they came to Isabel's home, this simple home from the outside, but that had this brightly illuminated light around it, like a protective barrier. And from the window, as we can see here, they were welcomed by the spirits that were there at their house. Yes, we might be asking ourselves, how can we do that? How we can transform our home in a temple? And how we can have this invisible alarm system? We worry so much about having cameras, having alarm systems, locking the doors. But the most important alarm system for all of us is this spiritual alarm system. Because Andre Luiz mentioned when he came to visit in the book Nosso Lar, his home, when he was incarnated, that was not a protective barrier. He saw spirits coming and going, and there was no one there to really secure the home. But in Isabel's home, it was different. They had to be let in by the spirit that was there guarding the home. He says there was a vibratory centric system in force, and then this home vibrated so high, that it served as a support post that represented Nosso Lar here on earth. And we will see the reason why. But they were welcomed by Mr. Isidoro, which was actually Miss Isabel's late husband. He had already discarnated a few years ago. And the instructor told Andre Luiz that because of the bonds of affection that held them together, he was allowed by the high spirits to stay in the home to help his wife and his children. And as soon as he welcomed Andre Luiz and his friends, he said, "Welcome, this house belongs to all faithful co-workers involved in the Christian service." As Vanessa just mentioned to us, the importance and how we can make our home a temple. Isabel's home, it was a temple, a place for charity, a place for educating the spirit, a place where she educated her children, a place of simplicity, but much, much light. Andre Luiz, as they enter the home, they get to know more about Mrs. Isabel. She, yes, is now living with her children. Her husband, as we can see, is in the spiritual realm, but still helping the home. And they had 5 children together, 4 girls and 1 boy. And he described that although the home was simple, as we just saw in Andra Luiz's message, there was nothing fancy, the furniture, he described the pictures on the walls, but he said it was such a welcome environment. And that from the simple lady seated on a chair, just needling, he could see a bright light coming from her loving heart. But this is what the eyes can see. But André Luiz also described the spiritual realm of this home. The children were there working, studying, playing, but in the spiritual realm, there was so much happening. There were illuminated spirits coming and going, welcoming them, because it was a place where they could come. Because of the high vibrations, they could recharge themselves and they can continue on their tasks. So at a certain point, André Luiz describes that Miss Isabel stops what she's doing and invites the children to sit around the table because it's time for them to do the God at Home meeting. And André Luiz describes that through that just a few minutes, Miss Isabel gathered the children around the table, asked one of her daughters to make a short initial prayer. So, highlighting for us the importance of bringing the children to the God at Home meeting. Yes, we know it's hard because the children, right, they want to play, they cannot sit still, but we can make it to an environment that is welcome to the children. And we will see exactly that with Miss Isabel, how she welcomed them to ask questions during the God at Home meeting. So it was not only her preaching and talking, on the contrary, she asked them to contribute by starting practicing, making the initial prayer, making the final prayer, reading a short message. And Andre Luiz says that because of that simple gathering, simple in our eyes, he could see that a beautiful light shined through, coming from the mentors in the higher realms through Miss Isabel. And he described the instructor saying that prayer from the heart is an electromagnetic emission of comparative power. It improves the ambience of the home. So, the Gospel at Home worship service is not just a studying of inner illumination, but also an advanced means of outward defense because of the spiritual light is surrounded. So, the God at Home meeting, friends, is our alarm system. It's what makes our home a fortress. It's what strengthens our home. And you might be asking, but I pray, why? Right? Well, during this time is so important because the mentor spirits, they know that in that particular day, they can come and we will be ready. We also want to highlight the importance, like studies like we're doing right now, connecting virtually too to your Spiritist Center, whatever you are, to Kardec Radio. We are also practicing this of bringing this spiritual lights to our homes. And Andre Luiz continues describing this meeting, highlighting for us again the role that parents can have in their children and the importance of this God at Home meeting. Because during the conversation, when she read a message, she brings some highlights to the children, and then she asks them, so now is your turn, let us contribute. And one of her daughters, very still puzzled, trying to understand what was happening in their home, she said, Mom, I don't understand. Why do we eat only once a day? Why do we have only one meal? When I get to know that in my friend's home, they have two meals, they have lunch and dinner. And a very valid question. She didn't disregard her daughter's question, and she took that opportunity to teach them about the importance that they had. They had to be grateful that at least they had one meal. And yes, she knew that since the father passed away, the situation changed in the home, but how it was important to give thanks for what we have and learn. She said we can use this to practice frugality, so we're not indulging ourselves, as Vanessa just talked to us. And her daughters were so understanding and they said, that's so true, Mom. There are so many people out there that cannot have not even one meal during the day. But then Andrea Luiz describes something very interesting. Although the four daughters were on the same page, were understanding, the little boy, the 12-year-old boy, he kept himself skeptical. He had this look that he was there, but he was not really there. And the instructor says, well, this little boy, he actually came from the lower zones and he reincarnated in this family to learn with the four sisters and the mother. And he then asked, challenging his mom, well, Mom, then can you explain to us what is poverty? And has a conscientious instructor. Andrea Luiz describes that, Miss Isabel describes that poverty is an opportunity for us to learn. If we reincarnate in a place where we have to face poverty, is actually a blessing because it's keeping us on track. She said, those who have a lot of financial resources, it's very easy for them to be distracted by the material things of the world, to indulge themselves. But we have the blessing of being poor, so we stay on the right track. So let us be thankful because through this teaching opportunity, we can fulfill what we came to do. And we invite everyone to go and read this dialogue because it's very interesting because the boy continues challenge the mom to a point that she had to firmly say, look, while you are living under this roof, you're gonna follow the decisions that we have. You're gonna accept what me and your father, when he was incarnated, have proposed to do with our home and our lives. Once you're free and independent, you can go out to the world But here you're going to follow the rules that we set. So Miss Isabel is exemplifying for us this importance in our home to be a friend, to be a mother, to be understanding, forgiving, but also to be firm and loving and instruct the children that God has given to us. And then Andre Luiz ends this chapter. In many other chapters, he describes the invisible work that happens in this home sanctuary. After Miss Isabel and the children go to sleep, he then describes, as we see in this picture, that a line of those in the spiritual realm who needed help, they would come to this source of light that illuminated the whole neighborhood to receive help, to meet with loved ones who were incarnated, who through their sleep they could then go and visit them. It was truly an outpost for visiting spirits from Nosso Lar to come and help. So we became not only an educational institution, but also a treatment center. And although very quiet, so much was happening in the spiritual realm, in this sanctuary that was Miss Isabel's home. So, friends, this is for us, illustrating for us how we can make this happen. We don't need a special recipe. We don't need anything physically. We just need to open our hearts and our homes to make our homes this temple, this sanctuary here on earth. So we're now going to pass back to Vanessa so we can discuss a little more about this topic.
Okay. Thank you, Daisy. So now we have a few questions to you, to all of us. A few questions we're going to ask here. The first question to us is this: what if we don't do the weekly God at home and just do our daily prayer? Is that any different? So let us call our friends who are here with us, and you feel free as well to write down. I'm going to get rid of the slide for a moment, but write down what you think. What if we say, but I don't do the weekly thing, but I do my daily prayers? Isn't that enough? Is it enough?
If I may say something,
Sure.
it is important to do the daily prayer, but if we really want extra help of the good spirits in our lives and really transforming our home, it is a must to do the gospel at home in a specific time and day, so that not only our guardian angel, but all these other spirits, as we were studying throughout these sections, can actually count on us and come and help us. So it's like a both ways help. We receive the help, and we also can help those in the spiritual realm in need.
Exactly. So Luciana is reminding us it's like this. You can have, for example, a heart condition and go to the ER. Yeah, doctors will be there. But the specialists are not there. To find a specialist, you need an extra appointment with a specialist some other day. When we do the God at home, it's like a special appointment with specialists from the beyond who may come and take care of issues that only they can take care of. Our guardian angels, protecting spirits, are facilitating it all, but not necessarily they'll be able to go to the depth that we need, because they need to teamwork with specialists of the beyond. So it's good to have that appointment weekly but also do the prayers, as Luciana said. Next question to us, and I'll ask Carol to help us. What if I watch violent and or horror movies at home? Because we want to make our home a temple. Is that a problem at all?
That will be a problem for any of us who cultivate this habit, because other spirits who also cultivate the same habits will join us, and thus our feelings of fear or of rage or other feelings that are difficult for us to handle will be magnified. And the more we cultivate this habit, the more, quote unquote, the crowd that join us will increase. And it's easy for us to open the mental doors of our homes and the vibratory doors of our homes to them. But then it's much more challenging to invite them to go elsewhere. So this is why it is important for us to watch what we watch.
Yes,
Watching what we watch is also part of watching and praying as
exactly.
Master Jesus recommended.
And it's hard, Carol. It's hard. I remember once I was not watching anything illegal,
Mm-hmm.
nothing, but I wanted to watch uh, a series that, talked about everyday things. And Mentor Joseph said, "Why don't you postpone it to another day?" And then I asked, "When?" He said, "Another day." He never came. So
Yes.
I understood what he meant. Because I
Mm-hmm.
remember Carlos and I once, many years ago, before Virginia was born, we were we wanted to watch a comedy movie. And then we thought it was a comedy because it's so deceiving. It says comedy. You click on it, and when you see the language, the action, and everything. And then I started seeing these spirits coming in through the walls. They
Mm-hmm.
were just coming in to watch. It's like, a movie
Free
outdoors.
movie theater.
Yeah, movie theater. They were
Yeah.
coming in. I was like, oh my gosh, Carlos. Yeah, and Carlos was like, oh no, this is not a comedy like we thought. Yeah, we better turn it off because it's getting crowded here.
Mhm.
We turned off. We prayed and said, oh gosh, it didn't work. So we had to find something else later. But it's a matter of two realms, as Carol is saying. Thank you, Carol. And another question I'll ask Paloma to help us here is what about, many people drink at home and they say, but it's just like that glass of wine. It's not much. It's just over the weekend, just to relax a little. How much of that can block us from actually transforming our homes into a temple for spiritual activities?
Yeah, so we understand in Spiritism and science already proving this to be true, that alcohol is very damaging to our physical body, but spiritually is even worse. We would say that because it does connect with spirits that are looking for that need, even though they are discarnated, they still feel the need of that addiction, which is an addiction, friends. It doesn't matter if it's once a day, once a week, once a month, once a year. When we are looking for alcohol, it's because we are running away from something else, from real life. It's an addiction. And that one time you will connect maybe with not one spirit, but multiple, as we saw in the book of Andre Luiz, Sex and Destiny, where, there were spirits just waiting, like, I'm next, get one more cup. And they were just waiting to also get that feeling that, people get from alcohol. So it's bad. And if we're talking about creating a temple in our homes and giving examples to our children, when we drink, no matter what are we being examples of? So it's a no. It's a clear no for us. As hard as it is for some people, no problem. I never drink. It's fine. I don't care for it. But I understand that society still believes it's necessary. So we understand that there are challenges, but they're not impossible.
Mm-mm.
They are not impossible. So we discuss, we think about it, we learn, and we make better choices.
Right. And we have here dear Sol Souza sharing with us. Her teen loves watching violent movies. I feel bad. You know, we are with you. We understand you. It's so common nowadays. It's sometimes parents ask me, how do I talk to my child? The tone of voice is always very important. To load our hearts with so much love and saying, I understand you need that much adrenaline to feel that running into it, because that's what happens when we watch those type of movies. There's a lot of adrenaline running. There is some pleasure in it, but at the same time, it's like eating junk food. It seems comfortable, delicious, but at the end of the day, we're destroying ourselves. It's eating junk, and we're attracting minds that are very violent too. Everything we watch remains in our mental field, vibrating vivid images, as Kardec says, and it's going to be like a magnet attracting it. So we're watching violence, we are emanating it and attracting it into our lives as well. So it's a choice. We don't judge, but we instruct, as Daisy was pointing out in Andre Luiz' own words. And we know you, Saul, you're a wonderful parent. You can do it. Count on our prayers. And we have here our dear Erica also mentioning about how the God at home also helps as making our homes an outpost for the good spirits who are in the neighborhood and want to recharge, and they were helping others as well. Thank you, Erica. And we have a comment and a question by Rihanna, who says she agreed with Luciana. It's a must. But what if we need to do it alone because the family members don't want to join, don't see the importance? Will it still be effective? Oh, yeah. We only need one person to open the door and they're in. That's it. Beautiful question, Rihanna. We know you know it, and that's a very important point to bring out as well. So now, one more, and we ask John to help us. What if we're home, John, and we want to transform our homes into a temple, but we engage into this day-to-day slander, bad mouthing, and gossip type of conversation? You're muted, John.
Okay. That's one of my pet peeves, because invariably somebody in the family is going to be talking to another member of the family or a friend, and they're going to be talking about that particular person. And what we do is we suggest something that's positive about that particular person, to always look at the positive side. And I think, that's, part of the Spiritist literature, is always focusing on the good. And of course, Christ being the perfect example of always finding the good in a situation where some of us might have a little difficulty. But it's just a constant thing to remind that member that that person has a very good side to them, even though you might not agree with what that particular person has done. Because as we all know, the family is one of the major challenges that we have in life, if not the most major challenge. And there's always one or two people that we butt heads with, especially around this political environment we have, and of course around the vaccine environment that we have. So there's always going to be that difference, but we have to let them, as we all know, be where they are in this particular lifetime, and thank God that we have the opportunity to embrace Spiritism. So Yeah.
It's good that you're saying that, John, because there are strategies around uh, avoiding and preventing the bad conversations. Somebody helps us sometimes by seeking the good, as you said, in the scenario, in the person, or by being silent, by stepping aside. If somebody comes to us and starts talking bad, it's charitable to sometimes stay away. Because if you keep listening, you may not be saying anything, but you may be just feeding. Just like Andre Luiz says in the book Sex and Destiny, in a scenario where they are in the hospital and there is this man who is cheating on his wife with his secretary, the young secretary. The spirit Andre Luiz with another spirit are looking at them with critical eyes and judging them. Suddenly, a higher entity, Brother Felix, comes and with eyes of compassion emanates this understanding. They don't see him, but they immediately stop. Sometimes people keep themselves in the loop of crazy bad mouth, even when we don't say anything, because we're feeding them with our own criticism, with our own inner duel. So here's an opportunity to step out and make peace, as Andre Luiz said in the message today, to make our home a sanctuary, a temple. Silence. The bad comments too. Comments of pessimism when people say, oh, this pandemic's never going to go away. Really? Has this ever happened in humankind's history? No. Epidemics come and go, come and go, come and go. It's another time. Yeah, in humanity's history. It will go away. It will go away. It's not worthwhile feeding the negativity. And now we have Serena bringing another question. Thank you, friends. What about weekly online meeting with our study group, which happens at home often when we do our gospel with them? Does it count? Oh, yeah, it does. Thank God. Huh? Check. It counts. It counts. If and only if we really devote ourselves. If we're here listening but cooking and cleaning, it doesn't count the same. We need to be really like we are, focused, fully hearted into this on that very time every week to make sure that the good spirits can do what they need to do. The ultimate question for us as we wrap up now is every home has a butler. Did you know? Every home has a butler. You don't need to pay, okay? This is free. You don't need to pay. It's a spiritual butler. Yes, somebody who is by the door spiritually, allowing people to come in or not, in both realms. Who is the spiritual butler in your house? If our homes are spiritual temples where we really devote ourselves to being better, loving, being kind, and making good use of the resources to help others, the spiritual butler is the group of spirits that guide our lives, the protecting spirits. But if our homes are just like majority of homes on earth, homes where we indulge, we rest too much, we do things that we don't even speak about, they are shameful in so many ways. Who is the spiritual butler? Those very friends in the spiritual realm who like exactly what we like. They like drinking, they like whatever else, 10,000 things that we don't want to mention. Eating a lot, resting too much, and porn, etc., 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 violence, horror, They are the spiritual butlers. What does that mean? When good spirits want to come in, it's tough. They will come in, but they will have a hard time accessing us, because in between them and us, there's a legion, as Paloma said, a legion of spirits who are indulging just like we are. So today, we're given the power, the key of our homes, back to our homes, in our hands. It's the spirits are saying, here is the key of your home. Make a choice. You want to make it a temple? We're with you. Or else. It's not a threat, it's just how it is. So let us be on this together and pray together. I would like to ask Paloma to wrap up, leading us into this prayerful moment of gratitude for being here. It's such a joy to be with all of you. Thank you, Valzinha Feliz from Brazil, talking about the movie Nosso Lar. She's here with us. Thank you so much. And Sol Souza saying how good it feels when we do the God at home alone, she says every week. Thank you, friends. Let us follow the lead of Paloma now.
Let us close our eyes, dear friends, feeling gratitude for being here, allowing this feeling to envelop us and expand to our homes at this very moment, inviting the good spirits, doctors and nurses to come in, to help us harmonize our homes, to help dislodge old energies and replace them with much higher vibrations, feelings of love, feelings of tolerance, patience, compassion, serenity. Let us embrace this moment of prayer and take advantage of this therapeutic treatment. Dear God, we want to express our gratitude for this very teaching of today. We know we all have homes. We now know we have responsibilities within our homes, spiritual responsibilities. We thank you, dear God, for sending messages through Chico Xavier by the loving hands of Andre Luiz, teaching us that our homes are supposed to be temples, temples of love, place that we can really do the good, not only for ourselves and our loved ones, but to whole neighborhoods and cities. We pray, dear God, that we take these teachings to heart today, that we meditate on it, and that we make changes every day so we can transform our loving homes. And we ask, dear God, that these blessings that we are receiving and being showered as of right now is also expanded to our neighborhood, that this shower of light reaches all the people around us, creating this big dome of golden light. We trust, dear God, that you have everything planned for us and that we have the necessary tools to apply ourselves to do the good. And under your permission and with your protection, we ask to close these moments of prayer and study of today, and so be it.
Thank you, friends, for being here with us. Thank you for everybody who has been here participating, joining the circle of prayer and study. We hope to see you next Sunday when we're going to have another book. It's Missionaries of the Light by Andre Luiz. another story, another family, another drama that is dissolved with the mercy and kindness of God. Thank you, friends. See you next time here at Kardec Radio, where we're always nourishing our souls.